Well, it's another very warm welcome back, and thank you for tuning in once more to Classic Dirt Bike TV. And in this next video posting, we're going classic racing once again, and this time we're going to look at some very muddy racing highlights from the 2009 Kendal Classic Nostalgia Scramble. This event, of course, is held at Holme Farm in Sedbergh in Cumbria, and we're going to kick off with our first race of the day. This is the pre-1974 over 250cc class. And it looks like Andy Robertson has made a fantastic start there on the BSA. A couple of fallers right into turn one. I think one of those fallers looks like Tony Barnes there. It looks like Tony's had a coming together with one of the other riders as they went into turn one. It looks like Tony's dropped his CCM bike, but as they begin lap one, here's your race leader, the racing legend Andy Robertson. Number 03 on that very quick BSA machine. And I think that's a big 500 B50 motor that Andy's riding in this race. Of course, Andy, a racing legend from way back in the days when scrambling was held and broadcast live on TV. As you can see, Andy's lost none of that racing speed that he enjoyed back in the day. But the track conditions here at Holme Farm, not the best. Quite wet, as you can see, and slippy. It might be quite difficult to identify many of these riders with their numbers being obscured, but nevertheless we'll do our very best to try and identify some of the riders. But it's still number 03, Andy Robertson, your race leader on the BSA. I think second position is at number 42. I think that's Gary Parker, who's riding a 500 at CCM. But here's your race leader, Andy Robertson, doing it speedway style as he comes round to complete another lap. Number 42 there is Gary Parker on a CCM bike. And number 7 just going through there, that's the racing legend Norman Barrow on his CCM. But here's your race leader, Andy Robertson, as he heads across the slight jump to complete another racing lap. A very quick rider still, Andy Robertson, on this big BSA 500. So as Andy Robertson comes round to start his last and final lap, of course this is just the racing highlights, so we won't be showing you every single race in its entirety, but we'll try and pick out some of the best parts of each race. So it's still Andy Robertson, your race leader, as he got about half a lap to go, treading a bit warily on the corners there because it's quite easy to drop your bike in these kind of conditions. But it looks like he's heading for his first win of the day. So as he comes round to take the last and final turn, it's a win for the racing legend Andy Robertson, number 03. Now, despite the dreadful conditions here at Holme Farm for an August afternoon, quite a good crowd turned up to take a look at the Nostalgia Scramble for this year. So we're going to press on with the next race, which of course is the first of the Twin Shock races. This is the Twin Shock Bandits. Number 45 there, that's Alan Hardy. Number 4, a nice old Italian Moto Villa there. Number 38 is Ian Charlton. So it looks like everybody's good to go as they leave the line. Quite a good start there by Alan Hardy, number 45 on that 400 Michael. Ian Charlton's also made a good start on the CCM there in first position, number 38. So as the riders make their way through to begin lap 1, it's Ian Charlton, your race leader, from number 45, Alan Hardy, and I think in third position there it's number 88, and I think that's Michael Irving on that 495 KTM two-stroke bike. So as they head up the hill to turn into the centre of the track. It's number 38, Ian Charlton on the CCM. The second now is number 88, Michael Irving. Michael, of course, a local man from Kendal, so hasn't had to do much travelling to get to this track today. But this is a good start by number 38, Ian Charlton, on the big Alan Clues 500 CCM bike. Michael Irving there in second position on the KTM. Alan Hardy, number 45, in third position. I think that was number 12 just going through. That was Phil Wadsworth on the 540 HPF Honda. Rod Spry making his way through. But not too easy to pick out the riders with their numbers obscured, but we'll try and do what we can. And number 30 just making his way through is Dave Ashworth on his 400 Michael. But we're going to pick up our race leader again. It's still number 88. That's Michael Irving on the 495 KTM. Quite a rare bike to see at a classic and vintage scramble these days. There's not many of these 495s. Twin shockers take part in classic racing these days. But back in the day when these 495s were all the rage, they were absolutely awesome machines, and some riders even commented that these 495s were just far too much motor for your average motocross racer, and it was only really the top riders that could wrestle these big bikes around at the racetrack. But it looks like Michael Irving's doing very well on his particular KTM. Second place man there is Ian Charlton, number 38, on the Alan Clues 4-stroke CCM bike. So this is another good ride by Ian Charlton on the old BSA derived Alan Clues engine. So as they come round to complete another racing lap, it's still number 88, Michael Irving, who leads Ian Charlton, number 38. And of course this race event here, held at Holme Farm, is by kind permission of the landowner, Mr. David Metcalf. Now, as you can see, the conditions at this point quite wet and sticky, but thankfully at this point no rain as yet. But as I remember of this footage from back in the day, there was rain forecast for later in the day, so hopefully the track wouldn't get too much wetter. So here's your race leader, number 88, Michael Irving on the 495 KTM twin shock bike. It's still Ian Charlton in second position. Ian's son Richard, of course, will also be racing at this event, and we'll see Richard in action quite soon. Now, of course, each year we hold this event here at Holme Farm. The club always has a guest of honour, and in this 2009 event, the guest of honour was Trials legend Mick Andrews. So Mick Andrews was giving out the trophies at the end of this event, so it was nice to have Mick Andrews in attendance at this event. Number 43 there is Andy Mallock on that 414 Montesa Capra. Another quite rare bike that you very seldom see racing at these kind of classic and twin shock race events. But it's still at number 88, Michael Irving, who's your race leader, doing very well on that 495 KTM. There's your second place rider, Ian Charlton, number 38. The coal man, as he's known, due to his business of delivering coal. Very hardy rider, Ian, and I must admit this is the first time I've seen him racing on a track for quite a few years, but it's nice to take a look at Ian on the racetrack once again on his big CCM. Although it looks like our race leader, Michael Irving, is either dropped his machine or has some kind of mechanical problem with that 495 KTM number 4. is Liam Morris on his quite rare 360 Italian-made Moto Villa. So this makes Ian Charlton our brand new race leader, number 38 on the CCM bike. So this has been a good ride by Ian Charlton. Barring any mechanical issues, it looks like Ian could be heading towards his first win of the day. Now these old CCM bikes, of course, were designed by the late Alan Clues when he took over the defunct BSA competition department in the early 1970s, and Alan Clues took what was basically a standard BSA 500 road engine and made some improvements and fitted it in a brand new chassis and made these fantastically competitive 4-stroke British race motocrossers. So as Ian Charlton starts his last and final lap of this race, thankfully at this point the weather's still okay, but the track's a bit slippy, as we take a look once again at number 43, Andy Mallock, or number 431. Andy's still riding that Spanish Montesa 414 at Capra 2-stroke bike. Just one, of course, of the many motocross machines that Andy has in his bike collection. But we're looking at the battle for first and second here between Ian Charlton and in second position, I think that's Phil Wadsworth, number 12 on the HPF Honda. So this could be a close finish at the checkered flag, and Phil Wadsworth looks like he's taking the inside line and he's got the advantage coming out of the turn. So as they head towards the checkered flag, it's Phil Wadsworth on the HPF 500 Honda who's going to steal this race from number 38 Ian Charlton, after Ian led almost every single lap. But it's a win for Phil Wadsworth and second position to Ian Charlton. Okay, that brings us nicely to the Twin Shock Pirates class. Now these are the quick boys of the Twin Shock classes. Number 25 is Craig Smith, number 2 is Paul Chiappa, number 5 is Richard Charlton on the CCM, number 79 I think that's Chris Spry, the brother of Robert, number 53 is Robert Brown. So it looks like we're all good to go as they leave the line. The Suzuki RM250 rider made a good start there. It looks like he's stalled it going into the corner, so he's going to lose that ground. It looks like it's Richard Charlton, number 5 on the CCM, with Mark Sylvester in second position. Oh, it looks like we've got a rider taking a tumble there into the turn. It looks like he's okay to continue. So as the riders head out on lap 1, it's Richard Charlton, your race leader. Richard, of course, the son of Ian Charlton, who we just saw taking a second place in that previous race. Both father and son, of course, riding these very quick Alan Clues CCM 500 machines. Second is Mark Sylvester. Third is Robert Brown. I think in fourth or fifth position is Russell Watson. Robert Brown there in third. Russell Watson in fourth. But again, quite difficult to read these riders' numbers. Number 2 is Paul Chiappa, the multiple Scottish Twin Shock champion. Number treble 2 there that we're looking at is Callum Sangster on the 250-81 Michael machine. Looks like we've got a coming together between a couple of riders there. Number 211, I think that's Cy Gregg on the big 4-stroke Husqvarna machine, but we're looking at our race leader, Richard Charlton, absolutely flying on that CCM bike. Second place is still number 26, that's Mark Sylvester on the 490 Micro. Third is Robert Brown, and it looks like Robert's riding his dad Bill's bike, now with a number 53 plate on it. This of course will be one of the many bikes that Bill will race at these events. Wolfsport owner, of course, and a man who does so much for classic and twin shock racing in the UK. So we're looking at the battle between Robert Brown and Russell Watson. So it's That's Robert Brown there in third position, Russell Watson in fourth. But you can see that these riders are certainly not hanging about, even though the conditions aren't exactly perfect here for racing. Yes, I know how you feel. Now, that bike, when he lifts it up, will probably be about twice the weight that it would normally be, but the question you've got to ask is, will it start up again? So we're picking up our race leader again. It's still Richard Charlton on the CCM. Second is still Mark Sylvester on the Myco. Third is Robert Brown. Russell Watson is still there in fourth position. But as you can see, these CCM 500s are very quick machines, and it just gives you an idea of just how competitive and quick these old four-stroke machines were back in the day. And here in 2009, they're still riding at the front of these motocross events. So it's still Russell Watson, who looks like he's moved through to third place, but Robert Brown's having none of it and goes round the outside, but can't unfortunately make it stick. So it's still number 26, Mark Sylvester in second position. I think Robert Brown is still holding on to that third place with Russell Watson in fourth, but as he comes round to complete another racing lap, it's number 5, Richard Charlton, who leads Mark Sylvester on that 490 Myco. And Mark Sylvester, of course, one of the top twin shock racers in the south of the country, and in dry conditions these guys would be absolutely flying around this racetrack, but even so, in these wet and sticky conditions, are still going quite quick. As we take a look at number 212, that's Trevor Guy on his 250 Myco. But it's still Richard Charlton. Doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to catch Richard on this 500 CCM bike. He's riding extremely well. Of course, these conditions perfectly suited for these big, long, stroking, single-cylinder CCM bikes. So as Richard comes round to complete another racing lap, speedway style, and just around the corner. Now these races, of course, for the twin shock classes are double the length of the classic bikes. I think these are 8 laps for the twin shock bikes, whereas of course the old classic bikes are only 4 laps. But it's still number 26, Mark Sylvester, in second position. Doesn't seem to be able to get up close enough to Richard Charlton to make a challenge for that race position. As we take a look at number 2 again, Paul Chiappa from Dunfermline on his 490 Myco. That's the only way to ride these 490 Mycos. Snap that throttle back and just hold on. So that's number 2, Paul Chiappa. I think Paul's currently riding in about 3rd or 4th position in this race. But this has still been a fantastic ride by Richard Charlton on the CCM as he makes his way through to start his last and final lap of this Twin Shocks race. Second is still Mark Sylvester there, number 26 on the 490 Myco. It looks like Russell Watson is still in 3rd position, with I think Robert Brown is in 4th. So we're taking a look at Mark Sylvester as he comes over the jump and into the last and final turn to start his final lap of this race. So it's still Richard Charlton, your race leader. Second, Mark Sylvester. That's Russell Watson in 3rd. So as we pick up our race leader again as he starts his last and final lap, this has been another great ride by Richard Charlton on the CCM. Richards was hardly troubled at all right from the very start of this race, and Mark Sylvester in 2nd position. Looks like he's not going to be able to do anything about the speed of this guy on the big single cylinder CCM bike. So just 1 or 2 corners to go for Richard to notch up his first race win of the day. Mark Sylvester looks like he's going to cross the line in 2nd with Russell Watson in 3rd. So just this last and final corner to go, but a very good ride here by Richard Charlton. So it's a win for Richard Charlton, number 5, and Mark Sylvester's going to finish in 2nd, with Russell Watson in 3rd. So that brings us to the final race for this short video from the 2009 Nostalgia Scramble, the pre-1960s Unlimited class. That looks like a good start by number 124, and of course that is Peter Jackson on his 500 BSA. Conditions very slippy for these old vintage race bikes, as you can see. An unfortunate rider, looks like he's taking a little slide off his bike, but it still looks okay. So your current race leader on lap 1 is number 124, that's Peter Jackson on that big 500cc BSA single. Very experienced rider, Peter Jackson, of course, but conditions pretty horrendous here for these old vintage race bikes. But then again, these are the kind of bikes that used to race in these conditions way back in the day, when they used to post the BBC Grandstand Winter Scrambles series on TV live, when every other sport in the country was being cancelled in the winter time, when there was no football because of the bad weather. There was always this type of classic scrambling to look forward to live on TV, where you would see the likes of Badger Goss and Vic Eastwood and many others taking part in those winter scrambles. And as you can see, the rain absolutely teeming down now, and in fact later in the day the organisers cut the races by 1 lap to try and get through the race programme before the worst of the weather hit the track. But you can see the already sticky track is going to be really wet now with this thunderous rain coming down. But of course it's thanks to your intrepid cameraman here, who stood his ground for the rest of the day and kept filming these old classic racers in action. So it's still number 124, Peter Jackson, your race leader. Peter, of course, from Guysborough in the UK, riding this big 500 single-cylinder BSA bike. And you can see the rain is certainly not letting up, so the rest of the races could be quite tricky at this event. But Peter's coming round to complete another racing lap. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be close enough to challenge him for the lead of this race, so barring any mechanical issues or Peter sliding off his bike, he's looking very comfortable for the win in this race. And number 466 just making his way through there, that's Steve Gagg on his 650 Tribsa. That's of course the Triumph engine inside a BSA frame, but looks like Steve is still doing quite well in these sticky track conditions. But it's still at number 124, your race leader, Peter Jackson, coming round to complete another lap of this Holme Farm racetrack, and in fact starting his last and final lap of this race. Number 454 there, that's the famous Peter Hollinshead riding that lovely SRM BSA. But your race leader, in fact, is now unfortunately dropped his machine, so that's Peter Jackson lying on the deck there, and this is your new race leader now. It's Peter Hollinshead on the SRM BSA bike, the twin cylinder BSA. So it looks like this is going to be a win for Peter Hollinshead in this race. But I do hope you've enjoyed these muddy racing highlights from the 2009 Nostalgia Scramble, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of these type of classic and vintage race events. So it looks like Peter Hollinshead is heading towards his first win of the day. Now that rider lying on the deck there, that's your classic dirt bike editor Tim Britton on his road-going Triumph machine. But once again, thank you very much for watching my video footage from the 2009 Nostalgia Scramble, and of course don't forget to retune to see more racing right here on Classic Dirt Bike TV.